So if we may, I would love to start the conversation by asking you, how can we develop a hostage-free state of mind?
Okay, that's a wonderful place to start. And of course, a hostage negotiator for many years, having been held hostage four times myself in domestic violence situations. So this was very early in my career back in the 70s. And it became very clear to me you did not have to have a gun to your head or a knife to your throat to feel like a hostage. That's one thing. But that you can be a hostage to a boss, to a colleague, to a team member, to a customer, to a supplier, in family life, personal life. You can be a hostage to spouses, to kids, to neighbors, all kinds of things. And you can even be a hostage to yourself. So here's the point. Being a hostage is to be powerless and to feel powerless. And that activates the fight-flight reflex. Either you get aggressive or you run, you hide, go inside. So a hostage-free state of mind, Michael, is where you come back to your own personal power. And even if you have a gun to your head, you do not have to feel like a hostage. You can talk, you can breathe, you can interact. And I think you know this based on your book and your work, that the whole point is, how do I say what I need to say? How do I keep the bond and engage in that behavior where I don't feel helpless? That's the idea behind it.
Such a wonderful synopsis, a career worth of work summarized into a 2.5 minute answer. A couple of things
we could talk for a whole session on that.
Yeah. We could. So many things that you said that I'd love to come back to, but I would like to highlight that I believe that is the most casual anybody could ever say. Well, I've been held hostage 4 times. Like that was sort of like I don't know if people caught that. Like, you just said you've been held hostage 4 times. Like I say, I went out to coffee this morning. So I would like to ask just a quick question about that without diving too deep into it.
Sure.
As you talked about that hostage-free state of mind, whether it's a real gun or a proverbial gun, we still have the opportunity to bond, which we'll get back to, but to talk and to communicate and to interact. So I'm very curious, because I'm always fascinated with how people stay calm, control their emotions, and function under stress. So to the best that you can recall, when you were held a hostage, and if I remember correctly, some of those were voluntary, like you brought yourself in and switched yourself out for the hostage. So when you volunteered to be a hostage, because who wouldn't, how were you able to stay calm, function, and establish the bonds necessary to resolve those situations peacefully?
Yeah. Well, I did actually volunteer to be a hostage. I volunteered to go in and talk somebody down in a violent situation. And then it escalated into them taking me hostage. So it was not always that predictable, but it was risky. So I had the wonderful opportunity to work with a psychologist named Carl Rogers. I don't know if you know that name. He was a very popular writer and psychologist in the late 60s and 70s and 80s. And I learned a lot from him about the whole idea of unconditional positive regard, both for others and for yourself. And so going through hostage negotiation training eventually, and doing things with mindfulness and understanding how to work with your mind, you just stay calm. But even before that, it was growing up on a farm. I grew up on a family farm. So there's always crises happening with things, not, of course, with hostage taking, but I learned a lot how to stay calm. And especially my grandfather, who was very, very good at that. So yes, I had an amygdala hijack, but then I immediately was able to calm myself down and focus on the goal, not focus on the weapon. In one case, it was focusing on Sam, the person, even though he had a scissors at my throat. It was not the scissors I focused on, but on Sam. And that's that whole listening. And that is the essence of what you're teaching as well. People want to be listened to. And by the way, in case your listeners don't know, hostage negotiation is 3 parts, basically. how to bond, how to connect, even if you don't like someone, and then how to listen to the pain point, how to be able to understand what is it that's driving the motivation, because happy people don't take hostages, and then ultimately concession making. And they get hostage negotiators as measured by Interpol over here in Europe and the FBI in the US, a 95% success rate.
Wow.
It's amazing.
That's stunning.
But they don't tell people to come out. You don't tell the hostage taker to come out. You do it by asking questions. You do it by engaging and listening.
Yes. Another answer with just layered with so many powerful things to consider. But if I hear a more powerful statement this month than focus on the goal, not the weapon,
yeah,
I will be astounded. And I hope people caught that. And the weapon doesn't have to be a pair of scissors at your throat. It doesn't have to be a gun in somebody's hand. The weapon can be an emotion. The weapon can be a threat of consequences. The weapon can be perception. But if we focus on the weapon, we can only go downhill. Focus on the goal, not the weapon. One of the most powerful things I've heard somebody say.
Yeah. Well, once I was, my first experience, not trained as a hostage negotiator, I was trained as a mediator. And I worked with the police in mediation. So the project was for a psychologist to go in with police and mediate in domestic violence. And when I had a scissors to my throat, I couldn't focus on that. And when I was facing a man with a gun, I couldn't focus on the gun. I focused on the person and what was his pain point. What could he talk about? What could I hear about that?
Fantastic. And that sets me up for another question about a theme that permeates both of your books, which is the power of our mind's eye and how we go where our mind's eye takes us, whether we realize it or not. How we talk to ourselves, what we focus on, plays such a big role in the outcomes we achieve in the relationships that we build. So I'm curious as to your best techniques or best opportunities for us to control our mind's eye and stay goal-oriented, stay positive in so many of the everyday stressful situations we find ourselves in.
Well, first of all, you have to remember, and I'm sure you know this, Michael, there is no such thing as reality. There is perception, emotions, all kinds of things affect perception. So you have to understand what your own focus is and the perceptions. And then the focus creates a state, either a positive state, a negative state, or a whole variety of moods and emotions. So there is a thing such as playing to win, or you focus on benefits, opportunities. And there's playing not to lose, focusing on the half-empty glass, the negatives. So you have to be able to keep coming back to playing to win. Hostage negotiators, good conflict management, good leadership is about being in a positive state, not avoiding the risk, not avoiding the danger, but you don't let yourself focus on that. So your mind's eye is something that you have to be able to constantly be aware of what it is moving towards. We're always focused on something. What is it we're focusing on, the positive or the negative? And we have to be able to come back as quickly as possible to our goal, what it is we want to accomplish. And that means separating the person from the problem. The biggest way people are taken hostage is they make the person the problem. And so when you make the person the problem, it's very easy to be a hostage. No, a person can have 10 problems, 20 problems, I don't care, 50 problems, but they are not technically the problem. Now, it is true, some people are a problem, but the mind's eye has to focus not on that, on the person as a problem, but what is the problem we're trying to solve?
Oh, I'm going to run out of note paper, by the way, trying to capture all of these quotes as we're talking. But again, I love it. I truly believe that often in leadership and negotiation and business development, honestly, in interview and interrogation, that the people who are the most successful are often the ones who can pivot from problem identification to solution creation as fast as possible and not get wallowed down or stuck in this is terrible, this isn't going to work, this isn't what I planned for, this person never listens. Well, it never goes to plan and they're not supposed to listen. So as I'm gathering intelligence, now how am I going to create a new solution? So to hear you illustrate like that is don't make the person the problem. The problem is whatever the contextual factors are that are impacting our ability, our emotions, our thought process. Let's address that first.
Yeah. Well, following the mind's eye and the bonding cycle, we go to the whole idea of dialogue. You know this. People talk too much. They have to ask more questions. And I teach leadership. I go over and over the fact that leaders have to stop talking so much. Say less to say more is the real secret. You're asking questions. And as an investigator, your whole history there, you know what it is to ask questions and to get people to express what they want to express, and even if they don't want to. And I think the other part of this whole continuum is to understand not just the mind's eye and being a hostage, because anytime you feel revenge or shameful or you let fear control you, you are a hostage to yourself. Is to understand pain, human pain, and the loss. And so what we take leaders through is a whole process of understanding what happened to you in your life and how did that affect your leadership, both as a parent, as a member in personal life, and in your professional role, whether it's a junior executive or senior executive or a CEO. What happened to you that you became the leader that you are? And that goes back to mother, father, childhood experiences, adolescent experiences, school, and so forth. And that opens a whole arena of pain points that were never, ever dealt with or talked about.
And now I'm so tempted to dive straight into your work with attachment theory and secure-based leaders and all of these things, bonding, especially with people that we don't like. But I'm going to take one quick detour before we come back to that.